Kevin Hunter here on the Business Forum Show, and my special guest in studio with me is Steve Franco, the writer of In-Laws, Outlaws, and Other People Who Should Be Shot, in parentheses, and also across the way from me here, Stephanie Hunter. First of all, welcome to the show, Steve.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And talk a little bit before we get started about visiting about the show and your background in theater. Visit about where you come from and where do you hail from?
I currently live in Salem, Virginia, the western mountainous part of the state, beautiful area. I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I'm the son of a soldier. My father retired to Virginia because of good VA hospital facilities and a number of our infamous family members who live in that area as well.
Mm-hmm. So talk about your background prior to getting into educating and in the theater community. What did you do before this?
Prior to doing education, I was actually tricked into being a theater person in my own high school. The school that I went to was extremely small. They had 7 students for a theater arts class, and they needed 8 for our county to approve the course. Wow. And the teacher told me, we need technicians for all of the shows that we do. I know that being up in front of people is really not your thing. It's not something that you enjoy doing.
I think I know where this is going.
And what we will do, we will use you in some of those technical spots if you'll just be willing to drop that study hall and add this theater course. So we have 8 people. And like the sucker that I was at the time, I said, sure, I'll do that. And a few days later, we were each handed a script. There were 8 roles in the first show.
Very good.
And so that was your debut on stage.
That was my debut on stage.
Very good. So you have been both educating and directing in theater now for 23 years. So talk about how that happened.
That was also one of those complete mistakes. I was living and working in Atlanta doing live stage theater. I was between shows there, had completed one show, had not auditioned and set up a job for the next, came back to my hometown to visit my high school theater teacher, and it just so happened that she had been at the doctor that day, was having some complications with a pregnancy, and was told you must immediately go on bed rest. The principal called me in, asked if I would be interested in taking on that job for the last 4 months of school, and slid a piece of paper across the table for me to look at, and it was my salary for that 4-month span. And having been very accustomed to living on an actor's salary, when I looked down, I tried very hard to not let my eyes get too wide, and I thought, you know what, I can act like a teacher for the next 4 months. And 23 years later, I am still in that
You're
same
still doing
position.
the 4 month
I am still
deal.
doing that 4-month gig. I became very enamored with the young people and the passion that they had for theater, and it is a great deal of fun. I have a great time every day at my job.
Well, it's very interesting to me that you say that, Steve, because there are so many people that have had similar opportunities and similar experiences. But you know what? Obviously, this was your calling, and this was what you were designed to do. Because when you think about this, one of the favorite quotes, in fact, it quite often sits here on the desk here in my theater, or in my studio, rather. We're talking about theater, so I'm getting myself confused. But it sits here in my studio, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's a quote from Winston Churchill. And he says, how unfortunate that you should be either unqualified or unprepared to answer a calling that comes to you in your finest hour. And how often do we find ourselves either unprepared or unqualified to answer when the knock comes at our door? And either because of what we've done in our past or with our mindset, we're not prepared to answer that call. But obviously you were, and it's led you to 23 years of a lot of fun in your life.
A lot of fun.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about In-Laws and Outlaws and Other People Who Should Be Shot. And what was your inspiration behind writing this show?
The title was actually one that I developed in a playwriting class in college, but each time I attempted to write this show, I just could not get what I wanted out of it, and quite frankly, it was inexperience as a writer. I was attempting to be funny. And typically people that try to be funny aren't. What I found through those 20 plus years of working in theater was that observation is the key, watching people. So I sat down and thought, well, if I know I want this to be a Christmas show, I want it centered around the holidays. What are the holidays? For the average American, what do we think of when we think holidays? And for me, from my point of view, it's family. And I thought, well, I expect that it's probably the same for most folks.
Sure.
And coming from a very, very large family with a lot of colorful characters, I decided that it would be best to center the show around different family members who are gathering for a Christmas Eve dinner, and then we introduce a criminal element in it to add some conflict, because in my opinion as a writer, without conflict there is no comedy.
Right.
One of the characters in the show, Aunt Rose, actually reminds me of a couple of family members that I have. And in fact, one of the really kind of comical things that she does is she's quite frequently relating all these stories. And they're probably stories everybody has heard, a zillion times. And,
Yes.
But they're important.
yes, and they're important. And what's funny is we all have somebody in our own families who's like this and who does this and is telling us this story like as if it's the first time we've heard it. And you talk about theater actors, we're on the other side of this pretending like, wow, I've never heard that before. Even though this is the 40th time this year we've heard the same story. So the other thing that I really like, I got a big kick out of the title, in particular the initial part of this, In-Laws and Outlaws, because my dad used to always say, whenever we had family get-togethers, didn't matter wherever, he'd just say, well, it looks like all the family and the in-laws and the outlaws are here, so we might as well get started.
Interesting.
But he used to use that all the time when he commented. And you mentioned that you come from a big family background. Well, Steph, tell them about your parents.
My dad has 10 brothers and sisters, and my mother has 15 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Yes.
So, yeah, big family there. And you talk about the potential for comedy around In-Laws and Outlaws. There's plenty of it.
No,
So-
there certainly is. And we all have those family members that we literally would not want to shoot. But boy, sometimes if you could put a muzzle on them, it would make for a much better gathering.
Very true. Well, we're visiting here with Steve Franco, the writer for In-Laws, Outlaws, and Other People Who Should Be Shot. And you can find him on the web at samuelfrench.com/Steve-Franco. Again, the website samuelfrench.com/Steve-Franco. And is this the first show that you've had published with Samuel French?
Yes, it is the first that I've had published, and they are holding a few right now that are pending.
Very nice.
Awesome.
So many more to come in the near future. Again, Kevin Hunter here on the Business Forum Show. Across in studio with me is Stephanie Hunter, and our guest is Steve Franco. And we'll be back here in just a moment. Stay tuned.